What's up, everybody? Adam Sierpinski here. So I just got the email that the DownBeat Readers Poll is open. I thought it'd be just something fun to go through, record my selections, talk about why I'm making the picks that I'm making. I would appreciate if anybody disagrees, and knows of somebody that I'm not checking out that I should be checking out. Please let me know. It's always fun to have a little discussion about who's at the top of their game. So just before this, the critics poll came out. So I've had that issue of DownBeat magazine for about a month now. I've had a chance to see who the critics pick, and I do want to take the critics to task just a little bit for voting, so heavily on the tail end of people's career. I checked out who they voted for all the instrumental categories and averaged it out. So the average age of a critics poll winner is 57 years old. Which isn't so old. I mean, that's a lot of people are still in their prime in their 50s. But we've got a lot of winners who are in their 80s, and just realistically, these are legends in every case. The winners who are in their 80s, legends, every single one of them. But they should have been winning every year for decades before, and now it's sometimes somebody else's turn. So critics, if you're out there, take a second thought maybe about some of the players who are deserving now. And, I'll give some examples of players who've been kind of shafted in the past. So when Clifford Brown was in his prime in the mid-50s, he was not winning this award. Louis Armstrong was still winning it. And, how can you argue with Louis Armstrong? But Clifford should have won it in the mid-50s at least once. 1959, when John Coltrane recorded Giant Steps, and he was also in Miles's band, kind of blew two of the best albums of all time. Didn't win it that year. They gave it to Coleman Hawkins. So there's this history of players not getting the award when they're in their absolute prime, and there are plenty more examples like that of players kind of getting denied the award in the years they deserve it most, and then getting it like a decade later. So I'm going to do my best to try to get it right with each pick, but let me know if I don't. So enough preamble. Let's get on to some picks. And by the way, I'm going to edit this video to put, they want me to start out with the biggest categories like Hall of Fame, Album of the Year, and so forth. I'm going to put that stuff at the end, but I have to go through the survey in the order they put it. Trumpet. I pre-selected Ambrose. I think this is as far as I got in terms of scrolling through and looking at the categories ahead of time. Critics also voted for Ambrose. I think that's the right pick. He gets docked a couple points because it's been a while since he put out a record. I also would consider Avishai. I would consider Kirk. His new record's really good. Sean Jones always sounding great. Jason Palmer always sounding great. I mean, so many people. Ingrid Jensen I'd like to vote for. Charlie Porter, not there yet, but he's been putting some videos out on YouTube that sound really good. I think he's going to be somebody to consider in the future. Terrence Blanchard came to Madison this year. Sounded fantastic. I'd like to vote for him too, but I'm going to stick with Ambrose. So trombone. All right, so trombone. There aren't a lot of trombone players. I don't know if there is a trombone player that's on a real record deal. I guess Natalie Cressman's on Ground Up. Is that a record deal? They aren't pressing the vinyl, but I think the record's out at least digitally. Elliot Mason I would consider. But yeah, Natalie, I'm giving her bonus points for the singing and the songwriting, but she's got a great sound on the trombone. Really a lot of warmth and character in her sound, and fun to listen to. So I'm going to go there. Soprano saxophone. Let's see, who did the critics go? The critics went Jane Iyer Bloom. Almost none of these people play soprano as their primary instrument. So we're really talking about a tenor player, sometimes an alto player who doubles on soprano. Branford hasn't put out a record in a little while, but he's got one of the all-time best sounds on soprano. He really plays the instrument. It could be his primary instrument, is what I'm saying. He sounds like it's his primary instrument, as he does on tenor. But his soprano playing is, I think, another level higher than everyone else on this list. Sorry to anybody on this list who doesn't like me saying that. Just perfect sound, perfect intonation, perfect phrasing. So that's my vote there. All right, alto saxophone. So critics went Kenny Garrett. That's a good pick. Chris, no. He hardly plays alto. let's see here. Who do I want to vote for? Miguel's one of my favorites. So Logan's been sounding great. Kenny on his last record sounded great. Arabagon, I've been hearing him more on tenor. I'm going Immanuel Wilkins. Such a great sound. Really a lot of depth in his sound. I love it. So I feel good about that vote. Tenor. Tenor is one of the hardest categories because there are so many people on major record deals, headlining jazz festivals on the tenor. Probably is the most competitive wind instrument. Critics went Charles Lloyd. That's a good vote. Let's see here. Ben Wendell always sounds great. Branford hasn't been as active, at least not in my realm of awareness, as I'd like. He's one of my all-time favorites. I'd like to vote for him, but I'd like to see him more first. Dana Stevens, David Sanchez, both of them sounded great. Donnie McCaslin, I haven't heard a lot from this year in particular. Same with Kamasi Washington, Joshua Redman. Joshua Redman's new record that's coming out is just like outtakes from the last record. John sounded great when he played Madison recently. Haven't heard Joe in a while. I think this category to me comes down to this year. Walter Smith or Melissa Aldana. Both of them put out a new record that sounds really good this past year. They're both touring, I believe. I'm going to go Melissa Aldana for this year. Her sound is incredible, and her tunes on the new record are great. So that's my vote on tenor. Baritone saxophone. Have I heard anybody from this list this past year? I am not sure. Let's go Leo P. for the dancing. I think the only two baritone saxophone records I bought this year were both from my guy here in Madison, Wisconsin, Anders Svanoe. So if you guys haven't checked out Anders, I think he's up to State of the Baritone Volume 5. Let's vote for him. Leo P was sort of a funny vote. I bought, it's kind of a homer pick because that's my local guy that I like, but I haven't heard any of these records. There is not a baritone saxophone player on a major record deal. It's hard to keep up. Critics went Gary Smullian for baritone. Oh, it spell checked me. Okay, so clarinet. Critics went Anat Cohen. I'm going to go Anat Cohen. Flute. I don't hear enough flute players, but Elena Pinderhughes sounds fantastic on Immanuel's new record. I've heard her a couple times with Herbie Hancock, with Common, with Christian Scott. I think she's, sort of in first place on the flute right now. Piano is a tough one. It's an instrument I play, so I naturally love a lot of players. Aaron Parks is one of my favorites. Fabian sounds great. Eric Rivas. Man, I'd love to vote for all these people. Brad's one of my all-time favorites. Herbie is my all-time favorite. Did I mention Gerald Clayton? Love his new record. Love his old records. Same with Joey Calderazzo. Keith Jarrett hasn't played in years. I don't think that's a sincere pick. Tigran's new record's pretty good. I'm going to go Vijay Iyer. I guess, I don't think I even said Brad Meldau. I think between Brad and Vijay, I like Vijay's most recent record better. So there's my pick. Keyboards. Oh, by the way, who did the critics go on? The critics went Chris Davis on piano. That's a good pick too. Keyboards, critics went Herbie Hancock. Who do I want? I don't see Domi on the. I guess her record just J.D. Beck and Domi came out really recently after the cutoff for this stuff, so she wouldn't be eligible. Here we go. James Francis. Yeah, so for sure, James Francis this year. He played on the Chris Potter Circuits Trio and Pat Metheny Side-Eye NYC. So that's two major records with just trio, the lead instrument, keyboards, and drums. And so he's really anchoring the harmony for the whole band on two very different but equally great records. So I'd have a hard time voting for anybody else over James this year. Organ, Critics voted for Joey. I'll vote for Joey. Let's see here. Guitar. So critics on guitar voted for Mary Halvorson. That might be my pick too. I always want to give consideration to Kurt. I always want to give consideration to Leona Lueke. Kurt's new record is a solo piano record. I'm not going to consider that for the vote. And Lionel, his last record was the Herbie Hancock record. I think that might be, not as recent as I kind of want it to be. Pat Metheny's certainly a consideration. I think I'm going to go Mary Halvorson. Matthew Stevens is another one I'd like to vote for. Can't vote for everybody. Bass. Is there there's another category for electric bass. So this is acoustic bass. First name that jumps out to me is Avishai Cohen. I think his new record is supposed to be too new to count for this. But I have it and it's really good. Let's see, who else do I want to consider? Christian, of course, always in the conversation. Derek Hodge, I haven't heard him play acoustic bass in probably a couple of years. I've seen him conduct. I've seen him play bass guitar. Where's Harisha? That's another recent record that I would want to consider. I don't even see him on the list. I think Avishai would be my vote anyway. Bass guitar. It's another instrument that I play, so I've got a million favorites on this instrument. James Genius sounded fantastic with Herbie. Pino, after Jocko, maybe my favorite bass guitar player. Maybe also after Victor Wooten. Thundercat sounds good. Tim had a couple good records. Richard Bona has been playing with Alfredo Rodriguez, sounding great. Boy, this is a tough one. Matthew Garrison I want to vote for. There are also like a lot of kind of like inside, I guess there aren't like Hadrian. I was going to say like bass players, like which Hadrian Farod is probably the ultimate one of those. And Yannick Gusdala, if his record, it's not really out yet, so I don't want to really vote for that. I'm going to vote for Christian McBride. I'm giving him a ton of bonus points for showing up in Madison. He had that Fodera fretless that sounded, that custom sounded really good on it. So Christian, when you come to Madison, bring your Fodera, you get the vote. Violin. So critics voted Regina Carter. That's a good vote. I'm thinking Zach Brock, sounding always good with Snarky Puppy. Sarah Caswell's a tempting one to vote for. She plays violin and she also plays that other instrument that I'm not going to think of the name of. That's like with the sympathetic vibrating strings. It sounds really good. She's got kind of a more of a pure acoustic sound, so I think I want to give some bonus points for that. It's between Zach and Sarah for me. I'm gonna go Sarah Caswell. Drums is probably the most competitive instrument because every band has a drummer for the most part. I mean, any band. It's hard to think of a band that doesn't have a drummer. And I want to vote for everybody. Hutch, Antonio Sanchez. Herlin Riley played Madison this past year. Sounded good. Nate Smith. I'll go ahead and pencil him in. Obed's been sounding good with Lincoln Center. Tane, I heard him a little bit on the Smalls YouTube channel, but the audio fidelity isn't really high enough to really consider that. Brian Blade, he played Madison 2 months ago. Just inspiring, still inspiring. I wish I heard him more. He hasn't been on that many records this past few years. I know he's been tied up touring with Nora, but I'd love to hear a new Fellowship record or something. Justin Brown, I would love to vote for. Man, so many good drummers. Justin Faulkner, Kendrick, always so good. Boy, Eric Harlan, hard to not vote for him. Marcus Gilmore, I don't know if I've heard. Oh yeah, he was on Pat's record, so yeah, I could vote for him too. Mark Giuliano's another one of my favorites. But this is a tough category. I'm tempted to go Mark. No, I'm going to stick with Brian Blade. Sorry, Mark. Percussion. Let's see here. Critics went Hamid Drake. I am going to go... I'm going to go Pedrito Martinez, partly for the singing, for the band leading, kind of like the total package. Vibraphone, shout out to Warren Wolf, but I think this is Joel Ross's category for the time being. He's just sounding too good to not vote for him. Miscellaneous instrument. Oh, yeah. I saw Scott on Emmett Cohen's YouTube channel pretty recently, sounding just beautiful on the bass saxophone. So I think that'll be my vote. Orchestration is that an instrument? Orchestrion? I've got to admit, I don't know what that instrument is. If you know what it is, tell me in the comments. If you don't, I'll probably just Google it anyway. Bass clarinet. Yeah, Chris sounds good on the bass. I think I'm happy with my vote here. Female vocalist, who have we got here? Let's scroll down and see. Critics voted Cecile McLaurin-Salvant. That's a good vote. I would consider her too. I would consider Esperanza. I think I'm going to go Gretchen. Her record is still new enough. The one with the cello, I can't remember what it's called on Audition Records. Still new enough to get my vote. She sounds great. Male vocalist. Well, who have we got here? I'm going to go Sachel Vasandani. His piano duo record. Actually, there's a second one that's either out or coming out soon. Those two records are favorites of mine. I've listened to them a lot, so I feel good about that vote. Composer. Critics vote for Maria Schneider every year, and she's always a good vote, but I don't think she should win it every year. I think Ambrose should have won it the year that he put out Origami Harvest. There are other people that you have to consider too, but in spite of that, I think I might vote Maria this year. Some of the other people that I would like to vote for in this category haven't put out a record recently enough, like with a lot of compositions on it. Terrence actually is somebody I could consider because the composing for his E Collective plus the Turtle Island group. I don't know. I guess maybe I feel like I'm doing that just to not vote for Maria, so I'm going to keep it on Maria here. Arranger, though, this is where I know the critics voted for Maria Schneider as arranger as well as composer, and I kind of wonder what's the difference, between composing and arranging in that case. I feel like the critics mean it to mean like orchestration, as if a lot of people write a melody and some chord changes, but then if you orchestrate that for the big band, now you're the arranger. I kind of see that as part of the composition process, which is why I voted for her as the composer in the first place. All right, this is sort of an oddball pick because Jacob Collier is not really a jazz musician. He's kind of become like a pop producer, but his production arranging skills are really really impressive and fun to listen to. And nobody else is jumping out at me on the list, so I'm just going to have fun with this vote. Let Jacob have it. Record label. So, critics voted Blue Note. That's probably going to be my vote too. Edition Records is not far behind. I think like in the past year, Blue Note has put out the best records, but Edition has put out more good records than anybody else. The biggest strike against Edition is that their shipping process to the States here is just like, it needs to be cleaned up. They have like $30 shipping charge or something like that, and then if you try to order 2 or 3 records to save on shipping, then they get delayed for 9 months or more until you get the record. So musically I would like to go Edition. I think for the overall package I'm going to go Blue Note. Shout out to Whirlwind though. I think Whirlwind's the only record label that's coming to mind that's putting out like really good 180 gram vinyl and then also giving you the digital copy with each purchase. So Blue Note doesn't do that. You have to buy the digital copy separate. But anyway, Blue Note gets my vote. Producer, I don't know if I know enough about producers and like what their role is on a record to have an educated vote here. There's a lot of names that I'm familiar with, but I don't know what their role as a producer was on the records they've produced. So I'm just going to skip that category. Blues artist, I don't have an educated opinion on the blues. I don't listen to enough blues, so I'm gonna skip it. beyond artist, I do listen to, despite not listening to a lot of blues, I do listen to some things here and there. So I'm going to go hiatus coyote. Can I spell it right? I think that's how you spell it. I think in terms of like the non-jazz albums or non-jazz bands that I've been listening to a lot lately, they're it for me. Beyond album, so I guess again this would be between Hiatus Coyote's new record and The Smile. Now, are either of them on here? The Smile, a light for attracting attention, that gets my vote. When you write in a name, it has no chance of winning, but that's fine. All right, so Hall of Fame. I had to look through almost everybody on this list deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and I think a lot of them will be over time. Dave Holland's name jumps out at me for sure. I think he's probably the most deserving on the list. I've got a real soft spot for Joe Lovano because of how big I was into, Live at the Vanguard in the 90s, and he taught at Berkeley. I played in his ensemble, so I had a chance to play with him every week for a semester, and that led me even deeper into checking out all his records. So, but next year, Joe. This year, we're going to go Dave Holland. Jazz artist. Ambrose would be my choice a lot of years, but he hasn't released a record in I think 2 years. I can't give Jazz Artist of the Year to somebody who hasn't put out a record in a little while. I'm sure one's coming soon. Maybe we can get you next year, Ambrose. Joel Ross is somebody to consider. His records, last two, are both pretty recent. They've both been really good. Brian Blade, I could vote for him any year. Even though he came to town, to Madison here this year, he hasn't put a record out in too long to get this award. I think I'm going to go Vijay. His trio played Madison this year. His record was one of my favorite records from last year. I think he's kind of the guy right now on piano. Boy, I could vote for a lot of people on this list though and feel good about it. Jazz group. Nate Smith Kinfolk. One of the best live groups. Oops, I clicked on somebody. Artemis. That would be a good vote too. But Nate Smith Kinfolk. They sounded so great in Madison. I had so much fun. And the Kinfolk 2, the last record that they put out, was just phenomenal. One of my favorite records from last year. Combining jazz, funk, creativity, pocket. It's got it all. So that's a vote I feel good about. Large ensemble, it's hard for me to not vote Maria Schneider. Data Lords was such a great record. Shout out to Christian McBride's big band, but I don't think they're quite up there with Maria yet. The difference in writing level is just too great there. So I feel good about voting Maria. Jazz album of the year. These dates are really specific. I guess they got to cut off the dates somewhere, but it's not like a full year. It's sort of like a, half of last year, first half of this year. So what jumps out at me? I actually, Melissa Aldana's record is really good. Haven't heard Ben Alfson's yet. I need to look that up. Let's see here. Gerald Clayton's record is great. I really like Avishai Cohen's record on ECM. The other Avishai Cohen's record is really great too, but I guess it's too new to be on this list. What else jumps out at me? Kenny Garrett, loved his record. I guess I already looked at this. That's my pick, Mary Halvorson. 2 records in one. First one, kind of standard, horns and rhythm section, and the other one's got strings. That's my pick, Mary Halvorson. I'll scroll past the rest of these. Historical album of the year. It's got to be Roy Hargrove or John Coltrane. I love Supreme. That's the vote. All right, so that's a wrap. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. I do occasional videos like this where I'm talking, but the main thing I do on my channel is just presenting music, mostly jazz music. Lately I've been featuring the best musicians here in Madison, Wisconsin on the channel. And I plan to keep doing that. I hope that's something that people enjoy, because boy, have we got a lot of good jazz musicians here in town, and I'd love for you all to get a chance to hear them. If you can't come through town and hear them live here, at least, we've got 4K video, good microphones and all that to give you the music here on the channel. So yeah, subscribe, like the videos, help me out if you can, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.